History laid the foundation
that informs our conversation. Welcome to the classroom.
From the church to the streets, and even in the suites, and all around the world. I'm gonna keep it real in the classroom. Fannie Lou's classroom. Fannie Lou's classroom. Fannie Lou's classroom.
Good afternoon, everyone, and just good everything, as Karen Hunter would say. We're super excited to be back for our 5th season of Fannie Lou's Classroom. Give it up for Fannie Lou's Classroom, all of our amazing guests over the past 4 seasons. So, listen, we got to always shout out those that make it happen. So we want to give a shout out to Brooke Mosley, our wonderful engineer who keeps this thing running smoothly. Have good sound, good quality, good picture. Thank you, Brooke. And then, of course, we have Cheryl Prelo, who manages any and all things behind the scenes. And then, unfortunately for us, but fortunately for her, Shanika Wilkerson has moved on, I'm going to say, to the east side. She done moved on up in the world. She took a position outside of Friendship West, and we're wishing her well. She's doing great. I just had lunch with her last Friday or Friday before last. So we thank her for all she's did, not just at Friendship West, but for the body of Christ. So we certainly appreciate all she has done to make the classroom amazing from its inception up until our 4th season. So y'all pray for us as we try to hold it down and move through season 5. But I'm excited to be back. So much we need to talk about today. We won't get to everything today, but obviously what's on everybody's mind, that in a matter of days we'll be entering into, I don't even want to say a new era of politics, because it's really just a coming back of what we've seen in this nation before, but certainly understand that a lot of people still have a lot of anxiety around the election in terms of what might happen, particularly those migrants, immigrants, families who are concerned about what's going to happen. Down to, I'm not going to say it's the food prices, because that obviously wasn't the problem. And we can talk about that in a matter of moments. But some people really are, right, have a lot of anxiety around what recently happened with the election and just what lies ahead, right? And so what we're going to attempt to do this 5th season is going to be somewhat organic as we plan some episodes, and some we're going to be able to respond in the moment of what's happening, not only in our political world, but in our immediate communities, and how that's going to impact us individually and collectively, which is going to be important for us to have that ongoing conversation. So right now, if you happen to be watching, make sure your notification bell is selected so you'll know when we go live, but also share this link, this YouTube link, with people that you know, your friends, your family, your colleagues, or just those who want to find out what should we do next, what should we be thinking about. And it's not just an immediate thing. It's going to be, are we committed to some long-term work to ensure not just combating what's happening in D.C., but what does it mean for our own vision of flourishing? So it's not always about resisting empire. It's also about how do we create our alternative ways of living, where we have communities that are life-giving, life-sustaining, and resources are flowing our way, which has multiple layers to it. But I have an amazing guest today who's going to help us unpack a lot of this and what we must do as we move forward. And so he's not a stranger, not only to Friendship West, but to the classroom. So we have my brother, my friend, my colleague, comrade in the struggle for justice, peace, love, and liberation, Edwin Robinson. So let's welcome Brother Edwin back to Fannie Lou's Classroom. And I believe this is your 3rd appearance in 5 seasons. Yeah. So you almost, slipped into a co-host role almost in a sense.
No, man. I must have said something right. When you get invited back, you said something right. Sometimes when they don't invite you back, you said something right too.
Wasn't it right? Exactly. So I thought it'd be good to kick out the season with you, because I know you are on the front lines, you're in the work, and you understand what it means to build power and the importance of strengthening our institutions. Right, that we cannot do this on our own. We have to do this collectively, but we also have to have a place where we house this work, right, and where the next generation is not started from scratch, but they build on that, expand it, et cetera. Like, you always adjusting to the time in which you live. It's almost like how we read our Bibles, right? We wouldn't keep reading it if we didn't think it had a relevant word for right now. And so the same way, we have to, what do we build upon? And then also a Sankofa is, how do you look back and fetch and retrieve that which is helpful and useful for where you're going in the future. So I think you're just really good at that, right? And so I thought it'd be good to have you here to kick us off in light of the impending inauguration. But let me give folks your background. They probably don't remember everything about you. So here's a brief bio of Brother Edwin. He has so much more than what I'm going to read, and you'll hear a lot of that come out in a matter of moments. So we have Reverend Edwin Robinson, who works as a community organizer, political consultant, and collaboration builder, focusing on organizing Black people and working class people in particular, and all people of faith to develop life-giving policies, elect progressive leaders, and build the civic and revolutionary power of ordinary people like himself. And if we're real, all of us, we may esteem ourselves to be, but you finna find out, you ordinary people just like us. Edwin's belief in people's collective power is to dismantle systems of oppression led him to organize the Dallas Black Clergy for Safety, Equity, and Justice here in the city of Dallas, which brings together North Texas Black pastors working at the intersection of faith and justice in their respective communities. Edwin is a retired Army veteran and currently serves as the community organizer in residence at my alma mater, one of them, Bright Divinity School, and an adjunct professor at City University, New York, in the School of Labor and Urban Studies. So as my mama said, he got the earning and the burning and the learning. He has it all. He's bringing it all together. He is also one of the creators and co-facilitators of the Regional Organizers for Community Change Texas program with leadership in democracy and social justice at the City Universities of New York. World Changers Guide to a World Changers Guide to Giving a Damn gives that's what it's called. Gives a brief glimpse into the perspective, approach, and a few of the leaders that ground Edwin in his work. I love it. How Black churches can change the world gives insight into the strategic and landscape analysis Edwin brings to his work. Let's welcome back warmly and affectionately, brother. I'm calling you Reverend, Doctor, Organizer, all things Renaissance man.
I'm just
Brother Edwin Robinson to Fannie's Classroom.
Thank y'all. It's good to be here. It's good to be in the classroom. This is one of my favorite places to be. So whenever y'all invite me, I'm gone. I'm down. I'm being here.
Well, we thank you for that. And, really, in the spirit of a Fannie Lou Hamer, right, who understood democracy as its idea, that it wasn't the case here in America, right? And even in her testimony, that 8-minute testimony before the Credentials Committee, and I love how Mother went up there with that purse, set that purse on that on that table, right, and told her story unapologetically about the violence against her body, but also shifting that toward the end and said, I question America. It is not the land of the free and the home of the brave, right? It's almost that kingy and be true to what you said on paper kind of thing, right? She's saying you're not a democracy. And I'm living proof of that for the violence I was put up against, but also the fact that we don't have seats at this Democratic convention, which is why they had to create the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, right? So I just love, when I come in here and I just see her name, right, that there's so much more, a rich legacy that she left. And I'm always saying Kofan Fannie Lou Hamer. It's always something I read. I'm like, oh, that's good, Fannie Lou. Thank you. Yes. And how we might use that to kind of radically imagine how we might move forward. But I want to start this way. I want the people to know. Tell me, because you always have something going that's good. So tell me, and I think it helps ground the conversation for the day as well. So tell us about what you have going on that's new, that's going to be powerful.
Yeah, again, it's always good to be in the classroom. It's always good to be here with my sis, Reverend, soon-to-be Dr. Danielle Ayers, and all the wonderful work she does here at Friendship West. People know about the work you do at Friendship West, but people do not know about all the work you do all over the country. She organized here in the city, but she organizes Black people, people of faith, all over the country. Major organizations come together because of the work that Reverend Danielle does. So thank you for inviting me to the classroom, and to everybody that's here. I'm a preacher, so we gotta thank the folks that do the things that allow us to show up and say the words. But right now, I'm really I know this is maybe sound like a I don't know, ironic thing to say in this moment, but I'm actually really happy about the work that we have going on. This is going to be a weird time in our country, of course, but it's not going to be something we haven't experienced before. In the 80s, you know what I mean? I think getting Reagan in office, right? Like the whole country went red except like the state of Minnesota. So, we've seen, and then after that, we got Obama elected, right? And then we're kind of in the backlash of that. So, things are what they are right now. There's definitely work to be done. But I'm excited because I love leaning into hope. That's what my faith tells me to do. So right now, I'm working with some really dope people. We're building some power, building a new organization. It's going to be called Bridge North Texas. Eventually, hopefully, it's called Bridge Texas. But the intent is to be the organization economically disadvantaged people can come to build power, to exercise that power, to have access, and exercise that in the political and the civic space. So there'll be an apprenticeship that goes along with that. It'll be a paid apprenticeship. We're going to be connecting people to organizations here in North Texas and really focusing on our North Texas area so that we can win Texas broadly. I'm deep into politics and sort of the math and all that. But to say it simply, the math right now, if we keep running up the numbers in the major counties in Texas, and then we sort of win Tarrant County by about 3 or 4 points, then we can probably move Texas from being a deeply Republican-held state. And so the hope is that over the next 5-6 years, we're able to build that kind of power. That we don't just win, but when we win, we're able to actually govern. Because, a lot of people like to win, but they forget when we win a seat, we actually got to do the work. And it takes people to do the work. Mm-hmm. So the goal is to build that kind of power. Very much, I want to shout out the people. This is not like, it's my vision, my idea, but there's a lot of people working with it. But I didn't come up with this on my own. We're all living in the history and legacy of many people who've come before us. But in our recent history, our dear sister Stacey Abrams, who had similar ideas about Georgia, right? And she worked hard, and Georgia literally elected the successor to King out of the pulpit, right, into the Senate and flipped the state. So we're hoping to do some of that same work here in Texas. We know it's more than a notion, so we're ready to roll up our sleeves and do some hard work.
So, man, I want to lean in right there because I think you're saying something important by way of, because you are a numbers person, right? And how you're talking about there's hope, right? To your point, it's just the work has to be done. And many of us who have been on the sidelines have to make a commitment to be engaged in some form of fashion, right? And I know that you do a wonderful job. And I know we're always saying you got to show people the hope, but also where they can fit. Like, you can do this too. Do you have this gift, talent, skill set? You go here. And let's be real, if you're financially able to support what we're doing, then that's your contribution. So it's always thinking about, because it costs money, let's be real, right? Because what we're trying to, whether we're resisting empire or building, that costs money. Yeah. Right? So it's just understanding, where you fit in that. But I want to go back to what you were saying about even how to win Tarrant County with just a small increase in percentage points. I was listening to, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe, in class with Carr. And one of the things Karen Hunter brought up was Marjorie Taylor Greene's district and how few votes she said she won by very few votes. The majority of her district did not vote for her. And so she was just making, a play could be switched from Democrat to Republican to run the primary to get that seat and to win the seat, right? And so I think things like, we have to start thinking like that. What you're saying, and I'm saying even what Karen Hunter is saying, like, we need to begin to think more strategically and long term about how we get into the seats, but not just get in, but then how do we use that power? How do we build that power? And moreover, for me, how do we on the outside hold the people accountable? Yeah. And what does that accountability look like? Yeah. So they know we put you in, and they have that same affinity to us. Like, those are my people, those are my people, and I'm their people, right?
That's right.
And so I just want to talk about what does that look like to you, to where if we get in the seats and build the power, what does it mean for us to hold accountable, and what do we need to do to make sure? Because I'm sure once you get into those spaces, you have a lot of competing interests, right? And we know in politics how you have to, give and get, right? So talk to me a little bit about how you see us moving forward in that specific regard of the mutual understanding of you in that seat. We're out here in the expectation, because you know what our expectations are. We've laid that out.
Yeah.
You know the agenda, right? You know the legislative policy. You know what's important to us, et cetera. What does it look like to really build that accountability system?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I want to step back in what you said. I think the work is that we actually have to organize ourselves and then build the power so that the people in office do know what our agenda is, so that they do know what the things are that we say we want in the community, and they are clear that, and not only that they know, but they have to run on the things that we want, right? Like if an elected official ran and got elected on a platform that wasn't the things that you want, what incentive does that elected official then have to turn around and actually do the things? Because you're not the constituency that elected them. The constituency that elected them is a constituency that had that platform, i.e. Donald Trump, right? Like you can say what you want, but whether he accomplished the things in his first term or didn't, some he did, some he did not, he absolutely tried. He gave his level best, whatever that was, and tried to do the things he said he was going to do. If he said he was going to build a wall, he tried. He may not have done it, but he tried, right? They said they were going to deport people. They didn't deport all the people, but they tried, right? And so on and so forth, right? And so I say that to say we have to, we do when elected officials are in office, we do need to, even if they didn't run on our platform and all that kind of stuff, we still need to build power. We need to hold them accountable. We need to put the things on the table. But if we really want to have our people in power and move things, we have to build our platform. We have to build our power. And then we have to ensure that the elected officials are running on the things that we care about. And that's the way that we stay in relationship. I'm trying to move out of this, like, hold people accountable in this sort of like violent, we gonna fire you, you're fired. That's very Donald Trumpian. And we've picked up that rhetoric in our platforms and but that's not really what we're trying to do. I'm not trying to say I'm holding you accountable because if you don't do what I do, I'm gonna fire you. That's really not the relationship that I want to have with my elected officials. The relationship I would like to have is we organized ourselves, we've been pushing for these things. You're about to run for this election in my district. These are the things we care about. If you run on them, you'll get elected. If you don't run on them, we're going to vote for somebody else. Plain and simple. That's the kind of power that we actually need to begin to build in our communities. And that work doesn't just happen in an election cycle. That work happens every day, 365, 24 hours a day. That's the everyday work of building power.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying just in terms of even thinking about our rhetoric and how we view that. I hired you, I fire you. But there is an understanding if you run on this platform that we have set forth and you don't come through, we will elect somebody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This idea. So to your point, it's
more like a performance review, right?
Exactly, right.
And I'm saying that to say, when I say I love democracy, like there's God and then there's democracy. Like that's and I believe if we're going to have a democracy needs to translate to every aspect of our society. Like we can't like I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of years running around in the broader progressive space, and it is wild. Okay, it's wild. Because it's so like I'm having these conversations. Everybody like they're critiquing Donald Trump as they should, or the administration as they should, and talking about they're authoritarian and they just make decisions and da 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 da. But then that's the way they run their organizations, right? Like the same progressive people, they're running their organizations the exact same way. And so the hypocrisy, right, knows no bounds. And we're going to have to, if we really want to put something forward that is different from our side, if you will, if we're trying to do something that is different and create a different world, then we have to be different. How we run our organizations have to be different. How we run our families. Like, if we believe in democracy, then we have to do democracy. We can't just do democracy when it feels good to us,
Right. And it's almost what I tell people who are in these justice, or you probably can attest to this, those who shout no justice, no peace, or are justice oriented are just as violent physically and structurally, right? In how they have their organizations and some even congregations built, designed, etc. It's because I say you have to live a just life.
That's right.
So you can't be out here talking about justice and then internally it's it's
crazy.
It's, right, it's wild and loose, right? That you have no respect for folks' humanity in other regards. And those can be small or big things. Yeah. Right? It's this ongoing, are we living a just life? So we talk about Micah, do justice. I always stop right there, right? That's right. Let's unpack that with is first individually. Are you true to yourself? That's right. Right? Are you being just with your own self? That's right. Or are you living a lie? Right? So that's the first step. And then how am I in relationship with you? Am I honoring your full humanity, right? This whole, I guess we could say Nutu or Ubuntu, right? Of that. And then, yes, the third level to me, now you can go out here. Come on. And hold these systems and institutions accountable because you know how to be justly with yourself and with your person next to you, right? Because then the understanding is all humanity deserves to have goodwill towards them, right?
Absolutely. As we say in organize, the first revolution is internal. And, to take this to a meta level, right, like if we want to talk about the Democratic Party, I understand, these are the two major parties that we have, but we also have Working Families Party. Shout out Working Families Party. If you don't know about the Working Families Party, follow them on Instagram, social media, at Working Families Party. It's an amazing political machine. But I say that to say, if we want to have the kind of democracy and all these things that we say we want, the first revolution has to be internal. And right now, the Democratic Party is doing a lot of soul searching and looking inward to try to see, all right, look, if we're actually about this stuff, I think, I feel like it's the moment. You kind of just got to be about it, and the lip service just ain't going to work anymore. Right. Because we're about to go through 4 years. It's going to be very painful for everybody. And this is people that voted for Donald Trump. This is people who did not. This is people who voted for Greg Abbott. This is people who did not. This is people who didn't vote, right? Which is a vote, right? Right, exactly. Unless you just couldn't. But we're about to go through a lot of pain, and it's going to be, and everybody's going to experience it. Our seniors are going to experience it in the healthcare field. Immigration are going to experience it in decarceration. We're beefing up police forces. We're adding more to the military budget. We're probably going to see another war. It's just going to be a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, and everybody's going to feel that. And this is not, in my opinion, this is not the moment to get on our high horse and point at people and go, ha, 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 look at what happened to you. This is the point to actually have the spaces and the institutions and the open doors and windows where people who are feeling this pain can come in and they can understand that there is a better way. And someone can, they can be a part of an institution that's going to build power to move in that better way. Now, you can be the people if you want to be bitter and crass and all those kinds of things. I say go to therapy, do yoga, go to church, figure it out. You can be those people that point and be like, ha, 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 but that ain't going to get us nowhere. Right. It's going to have us right back in the same seat 4 years from now.
For sure. And I think to your point about, I was thinking, what do they say? Democracy is for the people, other people, but by the people is where we are, right?
That's right.
And so to make democracy work, we have to be deeply connected to public policies, which really deals with how you're going to handle social issues, whether that's housing, access to child care, welfare state, et cetera, right? But also paying attention to laws that governs how we live. Right. And behavior, right? Like you can't go murder people. That's against the law. So we have to be very clear about, we have to really begin to see the structural violence is just as deadly.
Absolutely.
As like what we see on TV, like if it's state-sanctioned violence, when we're seeing, police brutality. Like we can see that and we can grab that, right? But we have to understand that the structural violence is killing more of us.
Absolutely.
Than that every single day, right? Whether you breathe in foul air, drinking contaminated water.
Come on.
And you're trying to cook your fresh vegetables, but that don't matter because you're cooking them in, contaminated water. Or you're breathing foul air. So you tell me to eat healthy, take care of my body, but everything I'm breathing in is killing my lungs, giving me asthma. So I think when we talk about democracy and what it means, it requires us to be engaged at that level. Yeah. And part of what you're saying in terms of building that power, and even if how you get people elected, you still need to understand that so you can even know how to talk to that elected official.
Absolutely.
And then you can go to the table and say, let's use reproductive rights as an example. if we want you to run on this platform, we believe in reproductive rights, the rights for women to decide if they want to have children or not have children. If they decide to have children, be able to raise that child in a community that's, full of life-giving, life-sustaining resources, right? But it's also saying, you run that, okay, now, hey, I need you to write this bill. We want, maternal care extended for 2 months or 12, which really happened, right? But that level of engagement so how we need to understand and how we might begin to break that down and simplify that for everybody to understand the way this is how what you see that impacts your life. Somebody decided either you're deserving or you're not deserving of this resource. No,
that's absolutely true. And I think that, people, so that work is being done every day. I was sitting with a organizing homie yesterday, as a matter of fact. And she was kind of grieving the moment, you know what I mean? She's newer to organize. I guess I've been in, so now, I've been in for a minute now.
Right.
I'm older than I look. But she's newer to organizing, but she was just kind of grieving the moment. What she did tell me about was how the group of people that she organized had been working around education and doing some things at the state ledge, and how they actually got a bill passed. Of course, the governor, did his little move to it. Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, what now? I said, you celebrate. Then you go back, you build more power, you put together another plan, and we do it all over again. That's the work, right? The work doesn't begin or end when the person I like or do not like gets elected. That is just a moment.
Right.
The work is literally the work to, ensure that people aren't being held, with unconstitutional bail and ridiculous bail practice. That doesn't happen in an election. That's everyday 365 work. The work to ensure that people get a living wage, and that people are getting paid more than the minimum wage. That work is 365. You know what I mean? And I can go on and on and on. And these are things that we've actually accomplished here in Texas and in Dallas and in North Texas, right? I can go to Tarrant County and talk about things that have been accomplished there, you know what I mean, with county commissioners around jail practices and prison practices that were harming black people and poor white people and women in particular, and how those things now don't happen. That doesn't happen in an election cycle. That happens every day, all day, right, with people doing the work. And so I say that to say, for people who, are like, how do we get, we're trying to build the institutions and the machines so that people can engage with these and engage with them in ways that actually make sense for people. Like, look, capitalism is real and people got to go to work. Period. Is the bottom. I saw a post the other day. It was like, good morning. It's time to give your daily sacrifice to the gods of capitalism, right? I mean, it's the truth, right? We got to go to work. I got to eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want to go on vacation. I want to take care of my family, all these things. And so we got to make money. And it's getting harder and harder to do that in our society.
Yeah.
And so those of us who do this work, I think part of it is understanding that we are going to have to, one, create spaces where people can engage in politics in easier ways. But we're the ones, we got to do the hard work so that people can come in and out and be able to engage with the politics in real ways. So I'm working on that.
Yeah, because I think it's important to highlight the ways in which people are deeply engaged in shaping policy and addressing laws that can be harmful to the community, but also that can be life-giving. Yeah. But I think, to your point, more need to be doing it, right?
Absolutely.
The problem is too vast. Too many people are too many folk are on the sideline, right? Yeah. And you don't want it, you want to burn out the people who are doing it. So I'm always curious how do we get more people to say, okay, let me go and step in. I can do some of this.
Yeah.
Right? To your point, showing that anybody can do it. And that's why I always try to make people, anybody can do this. It doesn't require a million degrees.
It does not.
Because you can read outside of the academy.
Come on.
You know what I'm saying?
And you know your own experience.
And that's really what it's about, right? Because I can tell you how this impacts me and the change that needs to take place to alleviate the problem, right? So that's one of the areas I'm like, how do we do, and we'll talk more about this on Saturday at the teach-in that we're going to be doing, but I think that is where we have to begin to move into that arena to get more people engaged in, and that's a different kind of work.
Yeah.
It's not show up here, we rah, and then you go home. This is, I need to show up every other week for this policy meeting.
Yeah.
Right. It is a level of commitment that has to happen. And I know in this day and age we're so pulled in many directions. Right, whether it's the kids have a full schedule, because now it's not about going to school; it's about making sure your child has this whole list of things on their I'm saying their high school resume.
Yeah.
Right, so you really can't spend time to really deal with it, because here's the reality. So if I'm doing all this for my child to get into this school, well, then you might not get in, because now the Supreme Court has really the whole backlash against DEI and affirmative action. But let's just say you do all of this. I'm going here. I'm trying to make sure my kid is in this program. They're in this activity. I don't have time to focus on the issues that are going to impact my child.
That's right. You still, in the midst of that, you still got to eat. You
still
got to sleep.
So you don't have time to give attention to what we're talking about, right? Because we're in this race, and so education has even shifted in how it's either a parent is not engaged, or it's like this full engagement. I don't have time. I'm doing soccer, volleyball, basketball on Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. On Wednesdays. It's just nonstop. And so I think I don't know, we probably don't have the answer today, but I think it's something we need to think about. How do we kind of slow this down a bit so we can really see the harm that it's caused? Because other folks are,
No, I'll speak to that. I think that one of the things that our opponent does very well is they keep us busy. They wear us out. Right. And so, they'll have us running from pillar to post, from issue to problem to march to rally to policy to da-da-da-da-da, right? And they got us just running. And what that does is it just puts us in a survival kind of mindset. And that's hard on the mind, it's hard on the body, it's hard on the psyche, it's hard on the soul. And so I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I really don't know how my sisters and brothers who do this work outside of like being connected to something that like sustains them deeply in their faith. It just don't understand it, because like you have to have something that's bigger than you that sustains you and holds you in this, or the opponent will just wear you out. So that's one. But the other side, we say an organizing principle is meet people where they are, but don't leave them there. And I think the thing is that we have to understand, that my constituency is people who are quote unquote economically disadvantaged. I love the phrase that my homie Britt White is using right now. She's calling systemically poor, which speaks to this idea, right, that systems literally create the poor.
And maintain it, right?
And maintain it, right? So it's like, so that's my constituency, right? And they have a particular set of realities. So how do I engage that constituency? My constituency is people who are impacted by the justice system. And they have a particular set of realities, right? So how do I engage them, right? My constituency, right, is people who are veterans of the military, and they have a particular reality, right? And so on, and I can keep going down that road, right? And so with that being the case, then that means what I create has to be able to engage them, keep them engaged, and do it in a way that makes sense for them in their lives. I can't. I've been in this work long enough, and I've made these mistakes myself, that we know where we have this vision of where we want to go. We have this vision of this world that we want. And then we say, okay, well, these are the people that I want. Okay, so you people jump on my vision and let's go and let's get it. And then nobody shows up. Like, you know what I mean? It's just what it is, right? And it's because part of it is we got to meet people where they are, right? And then we have to go at the pace of the people. You know what I mean? I may know this may be the urgency of right now and all of those wonderful things, and we got to go right now. And if they pass this policy, it's going to be bad for us. Cool, that's real. But if the people aren't ready, just like a military strategy, you're sending your people, you're sending your people into a massacre. And that's not okay. And so going at the pace of the people, building the people up, so that when and then having a longer term strategy, right? Like saying, okay, we want governing power by 2032 or 2033, right? Realizing that our opponent right now has all the power, all the political power, that is. And so we can't then say, all right, well, we're going to flip it tomorrow, or we're going to flip it in the next cycle. It just doesn't work that way. So then we have to have a longer term strategy saying, look, we want to govern by 2032. We want to govern by 2033. right? And then building power to get there and building that constituency on the way.
Yeah, when you said so much good stuff, but I'm going to start where you started. And I will say, not to your point, doing this kind of work, you definitely have a deep well.
Yeah.
That you can draw from. Because I think sometimes in doing this work, we overestimate or underestimate the toll it takes on people when you see the impact of systems on people's lives.
That's right.
So if you know these policies are being written, implemented, laws are being written, getting ready to be passed, see, you know the harmful effects of that. Mm-hmm. So it may not be, I'm not feeding people every day in a soup kitchen where I'm seeing, right, what's happening, but I know how to connect real humanity to the policy. Right. And I think sometimes we can underestimate people who do that kind of work. Just the emotional to know that it's evil, it's intentional. Yeah. Like, you're going to do this knowing what it's going to do to this group of people. It's not an accident. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things I'm always stressing to folks. Like, when you see it's not accidental. Yeah. Somebody is sitting at the table saying who's deserving and who's entitled and who is not. That's right. And oftentimes that's due to like social hierarchy. Mm-hmm. And as Eddie Glaude would say, this value gap. Mm-hmm. Right, this person, these lives are worth more than these lives, so therefore this policy can be passed. We know it's going to impact this group. That doesn't matter because we want to make sure this group is taken care of. Yeah. And so I think, and I love the way you said that, right? You got to move at the pace of the people while also, depending on what's going on, like, hey, you might have another train running, moving, but you're still with the people, moving the people along because you can only go as far and fast as they want to go and the speed at which they move. A cadence, I guess, if you will, that you establish with people as you're working. And I like how you said, I know my constituency, because we all have our constituencies, right? So it's about also identifying who do you see that you need to work with. That's right. Right? That's because then you got to have somebody who's working also with people who feel, I'm going to be okay either way it goes. That's right. Hold on. Yeah. Not so fast.
No, right. And there's a lot of people who feel that way. Yeah. I mean, well, because, and they're not necessarily wrong. I mean, hear what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying. There are things that I want for people's lives. There are things that I want for a lot of people's lives. I was sitting down with this sister, post the election, and she was saying, I voted for, I didn't vote for Trump, but this abortion ban ain't gonna affect me because I got money. And I was like, well, what if you? She was like, I have money. And I was like, she was like, I have money. I was like, okay, I get it. Now, here's my thing. I'm not saying that I agree with her. Mm-hmm. That's not my point. But if she's living her life in a particular kind of way, where these policies really do not affect her everyday thinking, her everyday movement, I'm not going to sit here and try to convince her that they do. Mm-hmm. That's not my job. But my job is to say, okay, cool, they don't affect you, but there's a whole lot of people that ain't got money, and that's your mama, them, your cousin, whomever. And she said, yeah, that's why I voted. That's why I didn't vote for those people over there, because Trump and Abbott and these individuals are going to do things that are going to harm people that I love. So I say that to say, I don't necessarily agree with her that these policies ain't going to affect their life because, environmental policies, healthcare, all these kinds of things, right? It affects everybody across the board. But I'm not going to try to convince you that they do. Mm-hmm. But what I am going to say is, do you care about the people that it does affect? And if you don't care about the people that it does affect, well, then I'm clear about who you are and who you serve. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not going to waste my energy, my time, my breath, my conversation. Let's talk about something else. Look, the Eagles are in the playoffs. Let's have another conversation. You know what I mean?
And they are.
But if you do, like she was willing to say, it didn't affect me, but it does affect these. So we were able to progress the conversation. And I think that also helps us people that do this work, it helps us from getting wore out. Because a lot of times we find ourselves out here trying to convince people who are convinced that their lives are fine. We're trying to convince them that they are not. Yeah. And I don't know if that, you got to bite that donut for yourself. You got to find out that fat meat is indeed greasy. And then we have the conversation.
I think that's what's going to happen, right? Yeah. So I don't know the young lady, right? So let's just say She's like, well, because abortion doesn't impact me. Okay,
right.
but let's just, I don't even know her. I'm going to say, let's just say she's
She black. She's
okay,
a sister.
she black.
Yeah.
Okay, so you going for this job, but they got rid of DEI.
Yeah.
So, where I see a lot of these, there's a lot of intersection too, right?
Absolutely.
Nothing is just over here by itself.
Absolutely.
If you will. So when people say that, I want to then ask, like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I want to ask, like, what do you think is not going to impact you? Are you looking at everything, or are you looking at the one thing you feel was pushed forward as an issue, like abortion?
Oh, absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? Like, are you thinking about all these other 101 things that will impact you directly?
I don't think they do. I mean, because, I'm smart. I could go down a litany of things, right? I could talk about the tax credits. I could talk about all kinds of stuff, right? But I'm not, like, my thing is, if you're scrolling on social, right, and you see particularly like the tax bill that they're about to put forward, right? So if you make less than like $90,000, your federal income taxes are going to go up. If you make more than that, then you're going to get a tax break. Now, somebody could say, well, that means you just need to grind a little harder and you need to hustle harder. And if you hustle harder and get up to that tax bracket, then you can have the benefits. But the truth is that that's just not the way that society is currently set up. And the great majority of society, you know what I mean? I'm going to mess up these numbers, so I'm not going to say what the mean income is. I'm going to get that wrong. I can't remember it. But it's less than $90,000. I do know that. Right? Sure. And the average, it's less than $90,000. So the great majority of society who already aren't making money are going to have to pay more, right? While the great society who are making a little bit more are going to get tax breaks. And that's just not okay, whether you're affected or not. Like, this is why, like, you have to have some sort of values and moral compass to say, yo, that's just, I'm cool, but that's not cool. And so we should do something about that.
Sound like some Roman taxation to me.
Little bit.
I'm gonna extract all I can from those who have the least amount of money.
A little bit.
Right? And so when I see, some younger folks, some older folks are like, well, we want him to get in office because, this economy is bad and I need more money in my pocket. But you're not.
But you're not going to have it.
That's what.
So, people, and the truth, so the state, that's what, I remember, like, during the election cycle, I tried not to get into a lot of back and forth these last couple of years because it's just not good for my health.
That's true.
But,
I
I jump into some of those conversations because sometimes people they're not having the same conversation at the same time. Mm-hmm. So there is a conversation that's like, yo, the economy, like, and when I say the economy, I'm not talking about the economy for billionaires and millionaires. I'm talking about the economy for the rest of the 90 some odd percent of us. Yes, ma'am. And so, but that economy for the rest of the night, like milk is high, bread is high, rent is high, Jordans is high, eggs is high, airplane flights is high, gas is high, right? So it just is what it is, right? And so when people say, yo, I'm gonna vote for him because the economy is bad, like the economy being bad is true. Their choice may not be the best choice. Now, those people are going to, again, find out that fat meat indeed is greasy. They're going to find out that they chose a tactic to meet their needs that is not going to actually meet their needs. They are going to find those things out over the next few years. And if we don't, on our side, have places for them to go, if we don't have organizations for them to enter into, if we don't have places that they can then say, well, what is my alternative? Well, then we're just another bunch of talking heads and we just as bad as they are. So I think it is true that people are really feeling impacts and people made votes because they're feeling impacts and because they're racist and because of all the other things. Shout out Eddie Glaude. Because it is true. Now, and when people feel these impacts, because we're here now,
right,
they're going to need a place to go. And where will that be? Because our opponent is creating spaces for the people that they know are going to be harmed by the policies that they themselves are putting in place. So we're going to have to step it up and do our work. We can't just, be talking and, you know what I mean, arguing back and forth.
Without question. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to move on. I'm not going to stay here long because the election is over.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It was a free and fair election.
It was free and fair.
But I think a lot of when I hear the economy is bad, that's why I'm voting for all these reasons why you're not voting for, Kamala Harris, right? Yeah. It really was, you don't want to vote for this black woman. And I'm also saying some of that was couched in that, right? It was just, I'm going to use, because I'm not being funny, but some people, you ask them, well, what's the economy like?
They don't know.
What's the issue?
They don't know.
You see, so a lot of stuff they're saying, right? Like, what's her policy platform? Well, all you had to do is go to the website, but where is his? So I'm saying that some of it was that, and that's a whole nother layer we have to deal with within community too, right? In terms of misogyny, patriarchy,
and it's real
sexism. That it's almost like we talk about. We say poor white folks vote against their interests because it's at least I'm not that whole deep South thing. At least I'm not black, but you're gonna be impacted, just as much.
I don't know that they vote against their interests. I think they vote for their interests. I think people have like racist interests.
Well, but I'm saying
I think people vote against their own flourishing, and that's the way I like to reframe that. I think a lot of poor people, poor white people in particular, vote against their own flourishing, right? Like, you need health care. Like, your mama, your daddy, your uncle, your auntie, you need health care. And you can't afford it. You need labor unions, right? Like, you need them so that you can actually have they vote, their interests, they're misogynistic or racist or classist or whatever interests are so over-exaggerated in their own lives that they vote for those interests over the things that are actually going to help them flourish and move forward. And that's the way I like to,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense. But the case still being, you're voting for something but you're still anti your own survival.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Either way, right?
Yeah.
And so of course and I'm saying the same thing. I think some people who did not vote for Kamala, they voted the misogyny.
Absolutely.
They voted for I can't even run the list down. You voted for rape.
Right.
Sexual or sexual, however you want to word it, right? But that's really what it was, right? And you voted for patriarchy that does not serve you if you ain't white male.
That's right.
Let's be clear, right? So I think that's what kind of, because I started asking people that I knew, like, oh, so you said because of this. I said, so tell me about that. Yeah. Like, so you're saying she hadn't done this, well, talk to me about that. Then it's like, well, she just don't have it.
Yeah. And that's we have to. I think we also have to understand that, and this isn't right. It just is. Mm-hmm. We have to understand that politics in the United States is also, not only is it about having the right issues, not only is it about talking to the people, not only when we start talking about these popular elections like president, statewide seats, all these kinds of things, like the word popular is it is pop. Like we have to understand those aspects of it, right? And it cuts every way, right? It cuts every way, right? I was talking to my homie, organizing homie, yesterday too, right? Another homie, and she's the one who actually led, her name Margarita George, led the work to have the Affordable Care Act, right? And not only to get the Affordable Care Act, but to maintain the Affordable Care Act through a Trump administration, right, and still doing that work to this day. But we were talking about just different political figures, right, and some of them, they got their seat because they were good looking and they knew the things to say, and those are some people on our side, right. It's like if you didn't look like that, you would have had to know a little bit more to actually get that seat. I said to say, only reason why I even mentioned that is to say that as we're doing this work, we need to do this work understanding that all of those things are real. We can't wish them away.
And I'm glad you made that point because we can go back to Stacey Abrams.
Exactly. Who should be our next president in 2028.
And she should have been governor of Georgia. Yeah. Right? And I'm saying if Stacey looked a different kind of way.
Oh, yeah.
She a black woman, heavy set, natural hair, living into her fullness. I'm showing up unapologetically, unashamedly who I am.
Absolutely.
If it was any other, it would, and I'm saying to your point, that these things do play a factor, right?
And,
Exceptional.
and look, and what I look, we won't look. Stop, look. All right, but I'll say this about what I appreciate. What I also, because you brought up Stacey Abrams in this way, and my hope is that Stacey Abrams. I mean, I don't tell people what to run, but I would love an America where Stacey Abrams runs for president in 2028, because I'm also clear that when things get bad enough, people are clear. I don't care. People are racist, misogynistic, and all the things. But people in this country are clear that dark-skinned black folk, I just happen to be one of them, just happen to be, but dark-skinned black folk, and particularly black women, have something in us that somehow figures out how to maneuver in these difficult times.
Well, because we can make the case maybe epigenetics plays a part in that. And that's passed down, that we know how. I mean, we know this,
Absolutely.
right? We have to know about everybody else, how they move, how they think, right?
And it's our experience. Like, we're experiencing the world in a particular kind of way.
For sure.
So I say that to say, my prediction, and this isn't me being pessimistic, it's actually being realistic and optimistic. My prediction is that things are going to get real bad over the next 4 years, and I would love to see a Stacey Abrams run for office. Now, if we're going to have a Stacey Abrams run for office in 2028, that means we're going to have the kind of bases built and political power across the country,
right,
to ensure her victory. We look at Kamala Harris, misogyny and the racism notwithstanding, but we also understand that she was running on Joe Biden. That was Joe Biden's constituency.
I mean, she only had 3 months to even
Come
pull
on.
something together.
It wasn't her. It's not her constituency. That's not her. And then the people, like, it.
We can talk about how I just think
Look,
that's the whole thing.
It
Right
riled up a number of us who were already, you know what I mean, black and in the space. And so we started talking louder, and we had a bigger stage. But there was no new this was Joe Biden's constituency. And so she was running a race, on that. My hope is we get to 2028, we have a person like Stacey Abrams. We've built power in Texas. We've built power in Florida. We've built power in Georgia. We've built power in North Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama. And I know people who are doing these things, right? And we hold power in Minnesota, right? And so on and so forth. And then we actually have like a real sort of movement that can get behind a real serious candidate who actually cares about the things that we care about, who happens to be a black woman, who happens, right, to be from Georgia. But we can get behind that because we have the real basis built.
And who happens to be more than qualified, right?
Well, that doesn't happen to be. She worked for that now. But,
no, I'm just going off of your who happened to be.
I'm just joking with you.
Your iterations.
Yeah. More than qualified. And an author. A ghostwriter.
Right, I was going to say that, right?
Yeah. She writes novels.
Right.
Anybody, people don't know. Stacey Abrams is a novelist.
Several,
as well.
yes, that's right. I mean, just an amazing, and like you haven't met her, sat and talked to her. I mean, just an amazing human being, right? Beautiful story growing up, just her family. I mean, well-grounded, a people person, and for the people,
that's right.
Most importantly.
That's right.
Right? So, yeah. A lot of work to be done. I'm super excited about. I mean, of course, it is going to be what it's going to be.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, I'm always like, well, what are the amazing opportunities we have? And I'm hoping this pushes people who are normally on the sidelines to say, oh, let me do something.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the great opportunities we have right now is it just is a fact, right? Like our opponents pretty much control federal politics right now, right? Supreme Court. Legislature, president, the executive branch across the board, and even to the military, right? He's not making the same mistake he made in his first administration. They're getting rid of, those generals that would not do his bidding, right? And promoting generals into position who will do his bidding. So they pretty much have control of the federal political landscape. And so with that being the case, I think that we still need to be, I think there's a part of the strategy is called the block, right? So we still need people up there blocking things that they're doing and trying to, create defense. And the opportunity, though, that I think it opens up is for us to put a lot more energy into our city councils, our county commissioners, our state legislatures, all these different places where we can actually see real things happen in our own communities. And I'm excited about doing that in North Texas. I would love to talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, so we never can get through just one. I mean, that's everybody that comes on. There's so much to talk about, but I think the last thing that you said is one thing we have to really lean into and know where is it that we need to disrupt, where is it that we can gain ground, and where is it that we need to hold ground and not lose what we do have, right? So it's just it's a multiple, right, offensive that we need to be on, not always on the defensive. It's gonna take all of us, and not only those who are in organizing spaces. I'm still gonna say it's gonna take. I don't want to say progressive, but I will say the capital B Black, capital C church to get back to what it used to be. Yeah. With some modifications, i.e., leave that patriarchal misogyny outside the church, right? But the ways in which we have responded in dark times. I mean, this is not the first. To your point, like, hey, because I happen to be one of them dark-skinned sisters, right? So that we know what to do. I just think we have to get people beyond being hyper-individualistic, not just capitalistic, but it's this individualism that has also kind of moved into our communities too, where I worry about me and mine, you worry about you and yours, up against, well, we all gonna feel it, right? So, and if I don't feel it, where is the honoring the humanity in others? Yeah. Right? So I eat more than 3 meals a day if I want to, but that doesn't mean I don't need to be concerned about people who are the food insecurity that people may be experiencing. Come on. Right? That's just the humanity part. Like, they deserve to eat just like I do in terms of having access to healthy food.
That's right.
2-3 times, at least 2-3 meals a day, right? They have a right. That, to me, that's a human right.
It's a human right.
I don't feel like that should be because I'm working 3 jobs and still can't pay this high rent and buy food. Yeah. Like, that's just crazy. That's just no. That's just not how it should be. And we can look at other quote unquote developed countries wherein, like, these are not the same issues, but we are just a different kind of place here in America. And we have to have a major shift. Like, it has to be a big pivot from that. And I think the work that you do and many others gets us closer to that. So we thank you for all of the hard work that you are doing. And I have to talk to you some more about, you got some good stuff going. Let me see how I can get in, where I can connect.
Well, look, you always connected. That's not even a question.
But see how we might do some more collaboration. So thank you. Let's thank Reverend Edwin Robinson. Time always goes so fast. Thank you for being here. So I have just a couple of announcements you want to know about. So number one, as we always say, you can support Fannie Lou's Classroom by purchasing a T-shirt. Just kind of go and scan that QR code. And another way to order that T-shirt, if you're on your phone, we'll go to friendshipwest.org/justice, and you'll see, scroll down and you'll see Fannie Lou's Classroom, and you will see a way for you to click on a link and order the T-shirt. That helps us bring on amazing guests like Reverend Robinson and just keeps us going from week to week as we do Fannie Lou's Classroom. So next week's episode, I believe my good brother, Reverend Dr. Reggie Williams will be. Is that who's here next week? Sure. Okay, yes. Yeah, so he'll be here next week. So we'll talk, it's kind of like God talk. We'll talk about resistance, rebellion, and revolution. Kind of going back Sankofa, kind of talk about some ways in which we might think about moving forward, particularly Black church, right? How we might be able to survive these moments, because we're going to feel it first. Yeah. Because as we say, if the rest of the country has a cold, we had pneumonia, right? So we're going to feel that when people knocking on our door making phone calls. Yeah. And I know that because we get them all day, every day already. Yeah. You know, how systems are impacting people's lives. And so we deal with that every day. So we're going to toss that around next week with Brother Reggie. So make sure you're back again at 12 o'clock noon. And then want to make sure you know about this coming Saturday. We always do our annual MLK teaching. We switch it up each year just to make it relevant for where we are. So this year will be a little different in that we are now going to be in 5 other cities, having holding simultaneous teach-ins using the same content and information in Cleveland, Ohio, St. Louis, Missouri, Atlanta, Georgia, Summit, New Jersey, and of course we'll be here on site at Friendship West in Dallas, Texas. And so we kind of expanded that this year. It's going to be an amazing time.
Touch your neighbor, say growth.
So
growth and prosperity.
It's going to be an amazing
I love
time.
it.
And so if you are not near a city, if it's not a city near you, you can tune into Friendship West YouTube channel. That's where the virtual option will be for everyone around the country. Just go to Friendship West YouTube channel. Check us out there. We'll be live starting at 10 a.m. Central, 11 Eastern. Please join us. And we're going to talk about like the 3 aspects of King this year. King as pastor, King as prophet, and King as policy analyst and organizer. And because the whole goal of the teaching when we do it is to reorient people to King's mission and ministry. Because over the weekend, you're going to get a king that he probably wouldn't recognize himself. Let's be clear, right? So we want to talk about that radical revolutionary king and how he was that way in his own way by exploring some of his some sermons, some book topics, etc. So we have excerpts. So brother, you're gonna be chilling.
Look, I'm going on vacation.
Getting your
y'all.
vacation.
I'll be back, but I'm gonna leave.
Yes,
for a
and
second.
so part of what we plan to do with the teaching is a start, right? Saturday is not about what we're going to do. Yeah. It's about let's ground ourselves in a very particular kind of way, understanding where we've been, what it means for the present, and what's the prophetic vision and what's the prophetic action we might consider. Yeah. So we'll do that on Saturday. And of course, you can join us on Sunday. Sunday is also our King Sunday. And lastly, please tune in or come live to our Vision Night on January 29th, starting at 6. We'll have some light refreshments and food for you, but the actual Vision Night will kick in at 7 o'clock p.m. Make sure you're here. We're going to talk about leveling up this year and what it means for Friendship West to cast this vision for us to understand what it means to level up in every aspect of our lives, personally, professionally, and by way of community. So it's our whole trifold thing we do here with the spiritual formation, self-empowerment, and social witness. So we're going to level it up in all 3 of those areas. So Dr. Haynes will cast his vision. We'll talk about what we did last year, but also where we see ourselves going forward. So you don't want to miss it. Super excited. And if you have children and youth, you really want to tune in or be here because we're really going to talk about the major focus on our next generation. We have to invest heavily in the next generation and have to train them now. Right, Brother Edwin, this makes the work easier for us.
Come on.
If it's already embedded in our young people, how they are to show up in the world and their commitment to community, their commitment to not being hyper individualistic, but understanding that you are your brother or your sisters or your neighbor, like how you care for your neighbor. So we want to kind of really pour that into them, but that allows us to have institutions that can do that. You need to have somewhere to house all that programming, a place for them to come and grow. So just come and learn all about our vision for that. We're excited to see you on the 29th at 6. Get you a meal. Come in at 7 o'clock and hear all about where we are going for 2025 and beyond. I think I think that's it. That's all the announcements for today. But please make sure if you can't be in person on Saturday, jump on YouTube channel at 10 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock Eastern. It's going to be an amazing time as we will really have real conversation and targeted conversation. So we're not just, it's not a town hall, we're passing the mic. We're intentional about the questions so that at the end we can do a mass data dump from all sites and kind of say, what are people thinking about, what they're committed to doing in the Midwest, what they're committed to doing in the Northeast, what they're committed to doing in the South, and how we might be hopefully move us in a collective fashion so we're not trying to have many empires and everybody's doing it on their own. Like how do we pull our resources together? That's what it's going to take, right? You talk about Project 2025, look at the first 20 pages of all the organizations that were a part of it,
and they
right?
They didn't just slap their name on there. They was in the meeting.
Listen, they were in the, hello. And so also, right, I don't want to talk about strategy over the internet because we got to get beyond that too, right? Everything is not meant to be public consumption.
That's right.
Because see, when you, as Greg Carver say, when you think it, it belongs to you.
Yeah.
When you say it out loud, it belongs to us.
That's right.
So we need to be mindful of that too. So, all right, I think that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for getting a different kind of meal at 12 o'clock on today. We hope that something was said today that will encourage you, that will inspire you to get involved in some type of movement. If you're not in Dallas, just kind of look and see who's in your city. And I always say, just go to a meeting.
Come on, show up.
You don't have to know. Hey, it's just about, to your point, just show up and trust me. If you're willing, they will be more than welcome. They will do more to welcome you into that space. So it's just about getting involved. Just start somewhere. You don't have to know it all. You don't even have to know anything, because if you come into the space, we'll make sure you're informed, that you're trained, that you're loved on, and that you're welcome. That's right. We'll give you everything you need. Brother Edwin told you, I read all the stuff he does to train folk. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about that part. Just show up and be a part of really having a real racial democracy. Let's be clear about that, right? 60 years in the making is still not what it needs to be. And so we want to make sure we continue the long legacy of our foreparents who at least started this work to understand what, like Ray Charles, what America could be. He couldn't see it, but he sung about it, right? What it's supposed to be. So it's this idea right here, because it's something that you see, not in your mind's eye.
I hear
right?
you. I hear you.
That should be manifested. I mean, he was singing about, the mountains. He hadn't seen them, but he, So I'm just saying that we just need to do what we can to prepare ourselves, not just for the Trump administration, but beyond that, because it's more than just about Trump, right?
That's right.
Because whiteness and white savagery is baked into the country, so it's going to manifest some kind of way, whether it's like a Trump or someone else is more subtle, right? So we need to be able to understand that so we can see it when it's happening, whether it's in your face or whether it's kind of like, did that just happen? Right? You can be able to identify that. So that's it for today. We've been gone. Sign off now. We look forward to seeing you next week right here in the classroom, 12 o'clock noon Central Time.
From the church house.